Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm talking about 10 board games I thought would never leave my collection. Recently I did a video of 10 games that will never leave, asterisk probably. I did another video like that 4 years ago. Those 10 games are still here. The 10 from last week, they're still here, shockingly enough. But it made me think about the fact that there are certainly games over time that I thought would never leave that did leave. Granted, I never made a video about them saying I think they'll never leave, but times are changing. Tastes in board games, they're changing. Your game group changes. New games come out that replace older games. There's always different reasons why games that once upon a time were a forever game are no longer that. And these are 10 of those. These aren't ranked in any order of how much I thought they'd stay here. Rather, I'm going to go through these almost like a journey of my own collection over time, starting with like the oldest game that I got rid of, moving my way through these until the most recent forever game that turned out not to be a forever game. Number 10 is going to be Small World. Small World is one of the first games I ever added to my collection. It's one of the games that made me fall in love with the hobby. I'd say Stone Age and Small World. I played those two games 3 months apart while not knowing the world of modern board games. And when I played Small World, I was blown away, and I just played Stone Age, or reversed the order. I don't remember which. I think I played Small World second. And I was like, what are these games that I never heard of? I started looking into things, and before you know it, I had placed an order on Cool Stuff Inc. Yes, that Cool Stuff Inc. back when they actually still sold board games. And I had ordered all the Small World expansions and everything. I ordered Small World and Underground and all the expansions, and Underground I only ever played like one time, but Small World and the expansions more than one time, but not that much. But Small World and the expansions I played a ton. This is one of those things, if you watch my channel enough, you know that I love powers and abilities. It's one of those things I frequently talk about because it's one of those things that adds variability to a game, keeping it fresh and alive forever and ever and ever, or at least until you get rid of it, which did eventually happen with Small World. But I loved the core premise of it. This was area control before I really knew the world of modern board games. My familiarity with area control was Risk, also a Game of Thrones, the board game, first edition. My brother got that because he loved the books. I played that one, I enjoyed that one, but more Risk. Risk was the kind of area control I was used to. And Small World is so clean, simple, and elegant that I absolutely fell in love with the design, and then got all the expansions to ensure that every play of Small World constantly felt different and unique. And I still enjoy Small World, but I just don't really play it anymore. Now I play it with other people's for copies of the game. I've played Small World in the past few years several times, but I played with other people's copies, or even the app, which isn't that bad if I want a bit of a nostalgia in my life. But Small World eventually it left. I mean, all the games on this list eventually left, but Small World is one that I think that one more so than many others. No, I think 2 or 3 of these on this list more reflect the nature of a gateway game and then how I evolved as a gamer over time, and others reflect different things. Game groups, time, there's all different reasons why games leave. I think Small World for me is that Small World is excellent at what it's doing. It's a great gateway game into the world of area control, but nowadays when I play an area control board game in the world of modern game design, I'd much rather play Blood Rage over Small World. I still get my powers and abilities, but I do so in what I think is just an overall better game. Number 9 is the second one that definitely falls into that gateway category, although many will swear by this game to this date, and I don't blame you. This is Lords of Waterdeep. Not one of the very first games I ever got, but definitely like the first 30 to 40 games I ever got. I don't know exactly what number it is. Honestly, it might have been 20, it might have been 15. It's definitely not in the first 10, but it's somewhere early on. I don't remember what prompted me to get Lords of Waterdeep, but I was looking into more board games at this time, probably because it was compared to Stone Age. I mentioned Stone Age a second ago. If you think of intro worker placement games, Stone Age and Lords of Waterdeep are amongst, well, some of the most common names that will be given. And Lords of Waterdeep reflected the spirit of adventure, but with that worker placement aspect. You go into different zones, you take various things, you slowly upgrade and add buildings to the board, you take control of buildings. Then there's the corruption expansion, Skullport I believe it's called, Skullport, which adds corruption as a mechanic that you have to balance, which honestly if you want more worker placement with corruption, check out the new Lost Winds of Arnak expansion. That's where my worker placement is nowadays. That and others as well. But Lords of Waterdeep was an excellent, clean worker placement game that became popular just as I was getting into the hobby for the first time. I was getting into the hobby in 2011, 2012. I want to say Lords of Waterdeep is a 2012 game. I'm sure I watched the Dice Tower review and immediately thought to myself, I need this game, which that hasn't really changed for me. That concept is still very much present in my board game journey. But Lords of Waterdeep is and was an excellent game. I've played that game dozens and dozens of times, and eventually over time, I feel that I've seen what the game has to offer. The general arc of the game I've played out enough times. Granted, I've played Lost in Varnak like well over 100 times by now, and that hasn't gotten bored for me yet, but I also think Lost in Varnak is a better game. I think Lords of Waterdeep is a more accessible game. Both have their spot. Lords of Waterdeep is still fantastic. I'd still happily play a game of it today. I just no longer own it. It went from one of my top 10 games ever, probably. I don't actually think I did top 10 games back. I don't think I did top 10s way back then, but I'm sure it would have been eligible for top 10 once upon a time, and now it's a great game that reflects a step in my journey. Number 3 is A Few Acres of Snow. And the next few over here, I'd say the next 3 to 4, I don't know the exact timeline of when I got them when I left, but they're definitely in a certain phase of my life, and that's where they were. But A Few Acres of Snow, probably my first Martin Wallace game, and the thing that probably made me fall in love with Martin Wallace's designs. But Martin Wallace is excellent at cards. That's what he's excellent. He's really good at cards. Most of his games that are amazing do rely on a card engine to give you that, and I think I find card games, meaning not card games, but games with cards as their engine, whether it's Terraforming Mars, whether it's Evenfall. There's many games that use cards as the core component that drive the game, and I think that A Few Acres of Snow definitely did so. It also had deck building back at a time when deck building was usually concentrated in things like Ascension and Dominion as kind of like, here's deck building, here's a whole game around it, and A Few Acres of Snow had deck building with a board, a concept that came out later, I want to say with Trains and other games, but A Few Acres of Snow, I don't think they did it first. I think StarCraft did it first, but I could be wrong with that, but A Few Acres of Snow is probably the thing that popularized deck, no, I wouldn't say popularized, I think Trains and other games did it later. A Few Acres of Snow had deck building with a board, and it did so brilliantly. I loved A Few Acres of Snow, and this one left because, well, there's a few games on this list that left for this reason. I just got too good at it. A Few Acres of Snow is a game that I basically win it every single time, unless I am playing against somebody else who is a Few Acres of Snow expert. And the nature of the way I play games means I'm usually playing games with a bunch of people who aren't experts in any one game. I have my game group. We play a lot of games. We don't really have experts in games. And so it does mean that when you have a game that someone gets very, very, very good at, which happens rarely but does happen, it does mean that the other players are just like, okay, well, this is a game that you win, and I get that. And A Few Acres of Snow is the first game that I experienced that with. It's a game that I played dozens and dozens of times back when I was playing games maybe 5, 6, 7 times, and A Few Acres of Snow I had like 30, 40 plays under my belt. I don't know the count. This is before I logged games, but I played it a lot. I also played on Yucata.de, the first time I found board gaming websites that I started to utilize. This is before Board Game Arena was the de facto popular board game site. Yucata.de is still around. I haven't played a game in there in so long, but there are some great games on Yucata that have not made their way over to Board Game Arena, and A Few Acres of Snow is one of them. But I always won it. I got to a point where I always won against the people I was playing at, because the people I was playing it with were not experts at the game, and I just played it enough times. I actually got it back years ago because, well, I got rid of it at a certain point because it just became a game that wasn't as fun to table, and then I got it back several years later wondering if things would change, and I dove straight into it and continued to win every game I played. This is not bragging, to be very clear. If you are good at A Few Acres of Snow, I'm sure you would demolish me. It's just that I'm playing it against people who have played it a few times, and I've played it 30, 40 times, and I just know the ins and outs a lot better. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. There are games I've played 30 to 40 times that I suck at. A Few Acres of Snow is not one of those games. And so I got rid of it because I always won. It doesn't help that it has the additional asterisk of something called, I'm not even going to tell you what it's called. There's a strategy. There's a strategy in the game that once you know about how, the name is actually not enough to cause the issue. The issue is more that if you know how it operates, there's a strategy in the game that is a little broken, which I successfully avoided knowing about for a long time. But once you do know about it, even with their attempted fix, it still adds a slight imbalance to the game that makes it slightly less fun. That's more of a, cherry on top as to why I got rid of the game. Number 4 is Ora Et Labora. Early on in my gaming, again, I say career, but whatever you want to call it, journey, my gaming journey, early on in this, I played a game called, I want to say Le Havre was the first Uwe Rosenberg game I played. I think it was. Le Havre was, it was one of the first at the very least, but I played Agricola, I played Le Havre, I played At the Gates of Loyang, and I played Ora Et Labora. There may have been others, but back then I want to say those are the 4. Maybe Glass Road a little bit later, but I don't know the exact time. I think Glass Road came later. But those 4, Loyang, Agricola, Le Havre, and Ora Et Labora were the 4 early on Uwe Rosenberg games that I played, back before he had even a more expansive catalog that continues to grow every single day. And I liked Agricola. I really liked Loyang. I loved Le Havre, and I love Ora Et Labora, but Le Havre and Ora Et Labora were both very, very similar at what they do. I think they're excellent, excellent engines as far as building things out. These are games you'll get a sense, a taste of that feel from playing A Feast for Odin as well. A Feast for Odin is one of my favorite Uwe Rosenberg games nowadays. Or Caverna as well. Honestly, they all have these similarities as far as the economy and the engine that they work with. But I think Ora Et Labora and Le Havre were my clear two favorites way back then. They have these fascinating little, well, Ora Et Labora had a wheel. I don't believe Le Havre does not have a wheel. Ora Et Labora has a resource wheel, so does Glass Road, and so does now Black Forest, which is also fantastic. But I really liked Ora Et Labora, but I eventually got rid of it. Primarily because this is when I started to enter a purging phase of my life, where I started to get rid of games more and more, and Le Havre and Ora Et Labora are a little too similar, and I don't play them often enough to justify owning both. I say that as somebody who currently owns Glass Road and Black Forest, but honestly, I think that one day I'll probably own one of those games and not the other. I say that because Glass Road and Black Forest are very similar games. They're similar in their structure, but they're very different in the implementation. I think Glass Road, I think Le Havre and Ora Et Labora are probably a bit more similar in the way that they actually played out, despite having some core differences at the same time. Both are fantastic games. I think I just prefer Le Havre, which game that I still have to this day, although I probably haven't played it in a good year at this point. I should probably get it tabled whenever I can. But that would be Ora Et Labora number 4. My number 5 is a game that This is the first game on this list that I know I officially put into a top 10 list at some point. This is before I was doing YouTube, but at a certain point I was like, what are my top 10 games? And I don't remember all those games that I picked, but I know that Cosmic Encounter was on that list. At one point, Cosmic Encounter was, this is a top 10 game for me. I loved Cosmic Encounter. I still wonder whether I should get it back. I think part of my problem with it is I do find, there's several problems. I have several problems with it, but one that is preventing me from getting it back right now is 5 players is not that common a game group for me at this point. I would say my most common game nights at this point are 2, 3, and 4 players. 3 being the most prevalent, then probably, I probably say the most at 3, then 2, then solo, then 4 if I have to guess, and 5 beneath that, and 6 is even rarer at this point. And that's something that's changed post-COVID. Pre-COVID, I had a giant game group that I would frequently have game nights that were anywhere from 4 to 8 people, having to split up in different groups, or play party games, or werewolf, or things like that. And post-COVID, I shifted down to smaller game groups. At this point, I do have multiple groups that I play with, but I'd say that each dynamic or each grouping is usually 3 to 4 people, sometimes up to 5, depending on who shows up or what happens. But 5 is just less frequent for me. So that's one of the problems with getting Cosmic Encounter back nowadays, is while it is playable at less than 5, I think 5 is really the optimal play count for that game. I have small problems with 4, some small problems with 6. 5 is really, I think, where the game shines. I'd say my order of preference is probably 5, then 4. I don't think I want to play it at 6. I've done it. I think the downtime between what I get to do and be involved is just too significant. And 3 is not my cup of tea. So really it's 5 and then 4. And honestly, there's so many games I play at those player counts, so many games I want to play, that I don't think Cosmic Encounter has a shot right now. But that's not the main reason I got rid of it. I love Cosmic Encounter and I still think it's phenomenal. It's a game where you take control of an alien race and then you just negotiate until someone wins. You're trying to get colonies onto these various colonies. You're trying to get your own colonies out there. You're trying to get 5 of them, and you can do so by conquering, or you can do so through negotiation. So there's a degree of trying to figure out how to negotiate with players, how to screw over and over, what you're going to tell people you're going to do as you work with either a good hand or a bad hand, but trying to figure out how you can utilize your core ability from your alien race, combined with the cards in hand, combined with the way you play the other players at the table in order to ideally win the game. It has had some epic moments that I remember to this day, as far as how one of my friends one time blew up all his own planets in a desperate attempt to slowly get the win out there. He didn't win, but he managed to blow up 3 of his planets by the time the game was over. There's so many things you can do in the game, and there's so many alien races. There's one time I had the butler and I was saying, please sir, thank you sir, to every single person at the table. There's so much fun to be had there. It's one of those games that at a convention, if you said, hey, do you want to play Cosmic Encounter? I'd be like, yes, absolutely. I still think it offers an amazing time. I also think it has some small flaws. For me right now, it's more about the player count and the dynamics. Otherwise, I'd be tempted to get it back. And let's be honest, if they ever come out with a giant deluxified version that Awakened Realms does, honestly, that's probably true for my 2 titles from now. There's another one I'm going to say the same thing about. But if they ever have a giant deluxified version, I'd probably be a sucker and get it just because I have such fond memories of the game and I still think well of it, even though I probably wouldn't play it because of the aforementioned game group dynamics. But I'll make those change if I get a deluxe version. At least for a few weeks I will. But I think for me, ultimately, as much as I do love Cosmic Encounter, I do find it's one of those games where it's a player-balanced game. Now, player-balanced games are not necessarily a problem. Most games that have a degree of area control or conflict have a degree of player balance in them, but I think I feel it more strongly strongly in Cosmic Encounter than I do in other games. Sure, if you're playing Blood Rage or Cyclades or Inish, other players have to get in the way to make sure that the current player who seems most likely to win doesn't win the game. But when you're playing Cosmic Encounter, that's not like a side effect of just the nature of the way the game works. That almost feels built into the intrinsic nature of the game, that is all about the players balancing the game, and that's something that I don't mind, but it means that Cosmic Encounter shifts a little bit from a strategy game to a bit more of a... I hesitate to use the word party game because it's not a party game, but I think the dynamic shifts to just the players balancing the game based on whatever races are in play and based on whatever cards show up, and over time it wore a little bit on me. Again, still think it's fantastic. If it weren't for the game group situation, I would probably justify getting a copy again. My number 5, we're up to a 6. I think 6 down here, 10, 9, 8. We did 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. My number 5, because we're counting backwards over there, is Chaos in the Old World. Chaos in the Old World is still excellent. It's still excellent, but honestly, it has some of the same reason I just mentioned for Cosmic Encounter is present for Chaos in the Old World, which we'll get to shortly. But I loved Chaos in the Old World. This is Eric Lang's design back when he was doing these gigantic things. I mean, he did Blood Rage as well. He's done some of these incredible, epic area control games. And when you play Chaos in the Old World, it definitely feels like it has some similarities to Blood Rage, but I think Blood Rage is just a better system, and Chaos in the Old World is a bit tied down by the role you have to play. You see, each player plays as an Elder God. As an Elder God or Chaos God, they're playing as gods. Your Khorne, Slaanesh, or whatever these, I don't remember. These are Warhammer gods. This is a license that Fantasy Flight had once upon a time. They no longer do so you won't see Chaos in the Old World unless you're willing to pay $250 plus whatever it is to get your hands on a copy of the game. But Chaos in the Old World is an epic area control game. We are controlling these various gods, controlling their asymmetric races as you try to work your way towards victory, which has a few ways you can try to do things to win the game. But ultimately, I think that over time, it is one of those games where I found that players had a role they had to play. Based on the character you got, you had to do certain things. Sure, it seems open-ended, but really one player is better at magic. One player is just going to fight everyone. All the other players have to gang up against that player, and that self-balancing aspect, this is a criticism I had of Root as well, until you introduced more factions to Root. Once you introduce the expansion factions, it kind of moves a little bit out of that pre-scripted role quite as much as there are in the core game. I think core game Root is solid. I think Root with expansions is better. Now, granted, there is one additional faction you get in the expansion for Chaos in the Old World and the Horned Rat, but overall I still felt that we were a bit too tied down to the role your character played, and you didn't really have this open-ended victory the way the game seemed to present to you. You had to do the things that were there. Again, I say all this with tremendous love for the game. Every single one of these titles on this list are games that I did and or do appreciate for a variety of reasons, but I'm also saying why I eventually got rid of them, and for me, Chaos in the Old World, Cosmic Encounter are both phenomenal games where I felt a bit too tied down to the role. My number 7, I guess, 7 over here is, no, we're counting down over here. My number 4 is Tigris and Euphrates. Tigris and Euphrates is the other one I mentioned that if Awakened Realms puts out a deluxe, or anyone, I don't care if it's Awakened Realms, if a deluxe version of Tigris and Euphrates comes out, I will almost certainly end up picking it up and justifying that choice one way or another. It is one of those games that I might get back even without a deluxe fight version. From all of the games on this list, I think that this is the one I am most likely to have back in my collection at some point, but for right now, it's gone. Tigris and Euphrates is incredible. I love it. It's probably my favorite Reign of Knizia game, and if you're like, well, it's your favorite Reign of Knizia game, why don't you own it? And it's kind of similar to what I said about A Few Acres of Snow. There's 3 or 4 games, and all my years of playing games at this point, that board game journey, 2011, so what are we up to? 14 years. 14 years of playing board games. I think there's like 4 games that I was too good at. And again, I say that, I am not too good against somebody who knows this game really, really well. I'm just too good against my game group. Tigris Euphrates is a game that I don't think I ever lose. I'm not saying I never lost, because back when I first started playing, I have no idea. But nowadays, and nowadays means the last X number of times I've played it, whenever those were, I just don't lose the game. I'm good at it. I have a knack for how the game operates. And again, whenever I say I'm good at a game, please remember, I just mean within the small dynamics of my circle, not within people who know the game well. But Tigris Euphrates is incredible. It's a little less fun to dive into a gaming experience knowing the outcome already because you got to that point. You got to that point with your group. That's the only reason I got rid of it as far as why I would get it back, because hey, my game group constantly is changing. There's always new people in and out. I can always say, hey, maybe there's other people who are really, really good at the game, or maybe other things have changed. I haven't played it in years at this point, but I think it's a phenomenal experience, and I highly recommend you pick it up. it's almost an abstract game, but it's an abstract game with area control-ish elements. I don't even know how to describe it well in short, but it's got a Knizia point scoring system. You have to equalize your points, but ultimately you're just trying to utilize these leaders to engage in either war or internal revolts. There's a few offshoot games from this. There's Yellow and Yangtze, and then what's the other one? There's another one that was a version of Yellow and Yangtze. There's offshoot games, but for me, Tigris and Euphrates has remained my favorite from them. Coming in at number 3, we have Indonesia. Indonesia is one of the first Splotter games that I did eventually get rid of, from the only ones that I thought I wouldn't. Splotter has a lot of fantastic games, but I think that I still have Food Chain Magnet, but from the others, I think that they're fantastic, but I can only have so many games like that, and I think Indonesia was one of those that I thought would be a forever game, and it turned out not to be. Although again, it's a great game. It's just a great game that eventually I got to the point where I realized I wasn't really playing it. I think it's fantastic as far as how it operates. It's basically about trying to buy shares, and how do you describe it? You're investing in corporations, and then they're going to be splitting out and merging, and you're trying to figure out the balance of how you each need each other as you manage the actual production of resources, the shipping of resources. You're trying to manage all these in this game in a way that feels a little bit like Acquire, but so much better than Acquire, and with an actual kind of real world situation at play, as opposed to just like a bunch of hotels merging. Again, there's a real sense of need. You need each other in this game. I have to manage the supply lines in the game. I have to make sure there's food to transport. I have to make sure there's people who want it. I have to actually produce those things. It is an incredibly deep experience that is incredibly simple in its rules, run incredibly deep in its gameplay, which is very often what Splotter is known for. Although I do think I think Food Chain Magnet is still where it's at for me, which is why I still have that one amongst all their others. But yeah, Indonesia, it's fantastic. The only reason I got rid of this one, honestly, is probably the weakest from all the reasons on the table, where it just wasn't seeing play. I think it's fantastic. From all the games I got rid of on this list, it's the only one that I don't have a defined reason so much as I just wasn't playing it, and I don't know when it was going to get played, and I just think my gaming group's taste evolved over time, and that was one of the cuts that I made based on it just not being prioritized. But it's such a good game, and I feel, hey, we'll make a third one on the list. If anyone makes a deluxified version of Indonesia, I'll probably be right back there for it. My number 2 is one that my opinion of the game changed over time. This is Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian's Wall from, oh my gosh, from Garfield Games. The first Garfield game I really loved. They make a lot of games that are incredibly popular, but Hadrian's Wall is the first one that really landed with me. An intricate roll and write experience that was, oh my gosh, like, I don't recall if I ever gave it a 5 out of 5, or maybe a 4.5, I don't know, but it's one of those two things, a 5 or a 4.5. It was fantastic. I say was and not is because it's one of those games that the more I played it, the more it started to wear on me. Because much as I love the experience that it unlocks, I do find that the starting half of the game, there's so much repetitiveness to what you're doing in order to build up your engine in the game that I find that, yes, this intricacy as far as how you manage the second half of the game, but the first half is, I'm not saying your actions are exactly scripted, I'm just saying that there's only so many ways you can split in the game, and because it's mostly multiplayer solitaire, just you doing your own thing, I still think it gave me an incredible experience. I still think it's worth you trying. If you like roll and write games, if you like intricate roll and write games, if you want an incredibly meaty roll and write experience, if you like Twilight Inscription, if you like, well, I guess, I don't know, Euro games, but also roll and writes, Hadrian's Wall delivers on so many fronts. The one thing I will say is I know that I'm not the only person who feels this way. I'm not the only person who, over time, their opinion of Hadrian's Wall changed because there's a degree of repetitiveness to what you're doing, despite the wide open way that the world builds itself. And unlike other roll games that might be simpler, something like, Railroad Inc. kind of has a short arc to it. Hadrian's Wall, by the very nature of its more intricate story, the intricate mechanics of how things work together, means you're engaging in a lot more repetitive, busy work that only becomes noticeable as you continue to play the game again and again. So I still highly recommend it, but with the caveat that it might wear on you over time. And then my number 1 is the most recent one to leave the collection, and that's Coimbra. And Coimbra is leaving for one reason and one reason only. And honestly, when I think of other games, like a game like Blood Rage, which I think has been in at least one, I think I put Blood Rage in my last video of 10 games that will never leave the collection, and it's still here. I don't think I put it in the most recent one, though, because I'm starting to see elements of what I saw in Coimbra happen in Blood Rage. And that's not a lack of appreciation for the game itself, but rather that you play it so many times that you start to feel you've explored the game of what it has to offer. This is slightly different than Hadrian's Wall, by the way. Hadrian's Wall, I think, structurally, I think it has fewer plays in it because of the nature of the intricacy, but also this multiplayer solitaire aspect that you're engaging with. Whereas the games like Coimbra and Blood Rage, I played Coimbra so many times, I think I've seen the way the game plays out. Blood Rage is much more interactive, so Blood Rage I still feel a higher sense of Blood Rage may still be here forever. I don't quite know. I know I've seen just enough that I took it off the list this time round. But Coimbra is one that did leave because of this. It's one that I feel like I love the game. I think it's incredible. If there was an expansion that came out for Coimbra, I would probably pick up the expansion and the base game again, because it's a great game. It's a great game. I would happily dive into whatever new strategic elements are unlocked, pathways to. I guess I'd wait to see if the reviews are any good. But Coimbra is just an intricate Euro game experience that I held up for years as the gold standard of these Euro games. And I think I'm a little alone in that. Like, other people hold on to like games like Lorenzo Magnifico or other Euro games from these Italian designer set of a bunch of Italian designers who all work together in different ways. There are other games that are absolutely fantastic. For me, from those games, Coimbra is the one that was my favorite. But over enough plays, I feel like I've explored the way the cards combine. I feel I've explored the board that you're playing on and the way you're going to invest in these navigations. It took a lot of time to get there. But after 8 years of my collection, I eventually got to a point where I was like, you know what? I think I'd rather explore Sankori. I'd rather explore more of Encyclopedia. I'd rather explore so many other games that grace my shelves that I don't feel I've quite seen all the dynamics yet. And so Coimbra did eventually leave. These are my 10 games, or at least 10. I had more than 10. I just chose the ones that I thought I felt strongest about. But these are 10 games that over time, over the years, over 14 years of gaming, I thought once upon a time these would never leave. They're games that were absolute staples in the way I viewed my collection and the way I engaged with them, and then things change. Things change one reason or another, whether it's game group, whether it's the game itself, whether it's maybe it's just not getting tabled, whatever the reasons are, these are games that did eventually leave. Which means nothing's safe. Any of the games on the last video or the most recent one, anything at any point can go away. It's just a question of ultimately what you feel is worth having right now. In any case, then until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.